Hi, this is Dominic Keating. I played Lieutenant Malcolm Reed on Enterprise, as you probably know, and you are listening to the NX 7062 podcast. Enjoy.
And welcome. It is time for the NX 7062 podcast. Hello, Magic Lasso. Look at you all here early. I get so excited, Lasso, when you're here early because I know you sometimes have so many other things that you're doing on Monday nights. And hello to you too, Robert. We are back. It has been a long road since I left y'all for Chicago, but here I am. It is good to see you all. Thank you, as always, for joining me here at 10 o'clock on the East Coast, hanging out in New Jersey, where the weather is interesting. I just saw on the news they were talking about, what were they talking about? Oh, it was going to get cold and nasty. So, of course, tomorrow it's going to 71, but it's raining. It always seems, and I think I've said this before, it always seems like when we get inclement weather, or no, I shouldn't say inclement weather, when we get unseasonable, that's the word I was looking for. When we get unseasonably warm weather, it always comes with rain. So you can't even really enjoy it. So I have missed you all. We have so much freaking stuff to catch up on. So I am so glad you're here. I'm like sitting here looking at like the 20 pages of notes that I wrote. So let's get right into it. The first thing is it is only 120 days until STLV, and they are already up to 83 guests, including one of my patrons and a loyal viewer here at the NX 7062 podcast, comma, Seventh Rule After Show, comma, Shuttle Pod Show After Show, hashtag Chatpack 2.0. Muhammad Noor is going to once again have some incredible science panels out at STLV. That's actually the first place I ever met him in person was last year at STLV. So if you have got a head for science, if you want to see how close we are to certain Star Trek futuristic advancements in the world of science, or maybe you just want to ask some leading questions about what's going on with Discovery, go talk to one of their science advisors and go hang out at Muhammad Noor's panel out in Vegas. As you can see, I do actually still have my little Christmas ornament. He's just barely, the NX-01, she's just barely in view. Yes, I feel like I am absolutely 100% copying off of the Shuttle Pod show because they have both that model and this model, and those models go with them. It's like no matter where they're taping the show from, the NXs and the ISSs always go with them. I think it's really funny. And I think it's funny that I just, of course, happen to have the same two models. Eventually, they'll probably make their way downstairs to where they were on display before. Let's see. What else do we have going on in the world of Star Trek? Well, how about 3 weeks worth of Star Trek Picard that we have yet to talk about? Finding out about Picard's past, I have to tell you, the one thing I was really happy about was to find out that his father was not abusive and that he was actually trying to protect that his father was actually trying to protect him from his mother's obvious illness. The other thing that I find interesting and telling and pretty realistic, actually, and we learned this, because Picard had an incurable disease. That there are going to be a lot of medical advancements in the future, but there are going to be some things that still boggle the medical mind, so to speak. So just because you're in the 24th century or the 23rd century, mental illness is still going to be a thing, and it's still going to be tough to deal with. And I thought that was kind of an interesting way to look at it, and it colors, it colors a childhood. Obviously, young Jean-Luc had a very different memory of what his mother was than from reality. So, and I also want to tell you that I knew that I want to call her Tiana, and that's not right. I knew that she was a Romulan the minute she put on that little pointed ear thing so that she could quote unquote meld with Picard while he was comatose. I'm like, there she is. She's a Romulan, 100%. And then she took whatever little filters off and she showed her ears. So I thought that that was pretty awesome. Um, the other thing I love about Picard so far is Allison Pill is getting so much to do with her character. I mean, Girardi was Girardi for the whole entire first season, and she was great. But now she gets to play this Borg queen, who is a completely different character, completely different set of morals. As we got to see, she goes around killing people because she's just trying to find that connection, and when it doesn't work, she gets frustrated, and when the Borg Queen gets frustrated, she kills. And I think that Allison getting to stretch her wings and do something completely different for an actor, I think that that's kind of fun and exciting. The same way that uh, Days of Our Lives is back to this devil. They had a devil storyline back in the I want to say late 80s, early 90s, and Deidre Hall, who'd been playing Dr. Marlena Evans for forever, got to be a completely different person. She got to flip a switch and she got to be the devil and burn things down and be evil. And after playing the same character for however long, when you get to flip like that, the same way the actors who got to play counterparts in the mirror universe, it's always so much fun to kind of explore different sides, or in Allison's case, get to be a completely different person inside the same body. And so I would love to ask her this if I ever get a chance to meet her, but I have a feeling she's having a lot of fun being the Borg queen. What else? Let's see. Oh, yeah. So we're also doing crazy songs again. And I love that because now it's making Data's dad, Noonien Sung, look like the sane one of the bunch. Let's not, I mean, Adam is toying with eugenics, obviously. He's about to go off the rails. He already did. He already tried to kill Renee Picard because Q told him to. So you already know that Adam Sung's not all there. Eric Sung, when we meet him in Enterprise, he's already in jail for stealing eugenic embryos, for stealing, Khan's siblings, basically. So, and then last season of Picard, we met Altan Sung, who called himself a mad scientist, who took over the role. His father's the one that created Data, and he took over that role of with robotics, at least robotics. And look what happened with that. So I just think it's funny, often wrong Sung, as we all found out he was called in TNG, was considered crazy and the mad scientist of the group. And now we're finding in his past, when you compare him to his ancestors, he's actually the more normal one of the bunch, which I love. I think that that's absolutely great. The other thing is Rios. Rios is getting some. Rios actually got some very interesting lines because he actually got to say, "I'm from Cuba. I just work in space," which was directly out of Star Trek 4 for all of you TOS/Star Trek movie fans. That was a Captain Kirk quote when Dr. Jillian asked him, if he was an alien or if he was from outer space, and he says, "No, I'm from Iowa. I only work in outer space." So that leads to Rios has let the Doctor see his ship. She now knows he's from the future. She and her son both know that he's from the future. So we've got, basically, I think we've got three things that are going to happen. He's either going to stay in the past with them because he's obviously fallen in love with her, and he's going to stay in the past with them. Or a la Star Trek 4, I'm pretty sure she said at some point that she doesn't have any other family besides her and her son. Now, it would take a lot, I think, for her to abandon her clinic. I understand that, but I could also see him offering her the option to come with them, and she does. Or they do some sort of Men in Black thing, make her forget everything, and then he just goes back, which I think is the least likely to happen. Something is going to happen. He's either staying or she's going. So it's going to be interesting to see where that goes. I'm actually probably going to put that up as a poll on Twitter because I know people that really feel like he's going to stay. Now, honestly, I don't know if I could give up of the future the way it is, plus all the hard work that he and the crew have done to ensure the future gets back to where it needs to be. I'm not sure I could hang back. I'm not sure I could just say, "Oh, well, good luck. I'm sure it's fine. Go." I think he's going to want to know if they did what they set out to do. So I could see him asking if she wants to go with them. The other interesting thing is that they're all going to go back. We figure they're all going to go back. Seven, what is Seven going to do? I mean, she and Raffi have had discussions about her, not wanting. She's not a Borg anymore. It never happened. She's not a Borg. She loves not being a Borg, and Raffi's asking her to access her Borg side, and she's getting pissed. So now the question becomes, what's Seven gonna do? Is Seven gonna want to stay in the past and stay completely human? If they do change the future, would she just morph back into a half Borg, to an XB? So that's going to be another interesting choice, I think, when this is all over. If she's still human once they fix everything, if she doesn't somehow retroactively morph back into an XB while they're in the past, is she going to want to not go back to the future where she could end up being 7 of 9 again for real? I think that's an interesting dilemma. Now we're on to opportunities missed. Because there's an article I read, but the one thing is that Jake Harns, who played Agent Wells, which it was a very X-File feel this past week when he was talking to Guinan and Picard. It was very X-Files feel. And he actually played a temporal agent in an episode of Voyager. So a lot of people were wondering if they were going to set this up that he was the descendant or how that was going to work. They never really alluded to that. A lot of people think that's a missed opportunity. The other missed opportunity that a lot of people were talking about was that Agent Wells did have an encounter, and he had an encounter with Vulcans. So a lot of people were hoping for a Carbon Creek reference, because those of us that are Enterprise fans, and Muhammad, if you're out there, you all know this, the Carbon Creek episode of Enterprise was when T'Pol told Archer and Trip the story of her great grandmother going to Earth, and they were only supposed to stay in orbit, and they crash landed, and her great grandmother and two of her crewmates ended up stranded on Earth, and they all spent their time laying low and trying to get back, except for Mistral, who fell in love with humans, fell in love with one human in particular, and he stayed back. So, and Vulcans with their long lifespans, Mistral could have definitely been hanging out, somewhere in North America in 2024. It's entirely likely. Whether he would have made his way west from Pennsylvania, who knows? But a lot of people were disappointed that that's not the direction it took, that it was another Vulcan. It looked like it was just another Vulcan landing party. And for those of us that have seen Insurrection, that happens before first contact. That was the whole beginning of Insurrection. Was Data was part of a crew that was quietly and unobtrusively trying to observe a colony on a planet, and they were doing it. But that's like one step towards first contact, is let's go in there and blend in and see where they're at and how far away we think they are from first contact. So it makes sense that if the Vulcans were surveying the planet back in the 50s, that they would come ahead in 2024 to see how far things had gone. So But again, that was a lot of people felt like that was a missed opportunity to make a reference to Enterprise, and I am all about the missed opportunities to make references to Enterprise. You should have done it. Just saying. Um, Speaking of Enterprise, I did also spend yesterday and today catching up on my episodes of Shuttlepod Show. It's really weird to go from seeing those guys in person to sitting down and watching them all uh, do their thing. The first episode that I needed to catch up on was the viewers' question episode, which I believe was episode 7. Was the viewers' question episode, which I thought was a great idea because those guys, and it's the same with me. I'll be interviewing somebody and I'll have my questions and I have, all you guys out here asking questions. And it doesn't, time doesn't allow for it. I mean, those guys usually try to keep it right to an hour. Um, Unlike me, who, me, I will just yap until I'm done. But it's nice that because it's, the other thing too is a lot of the questions were specifically geared towards Connor and Dominic, where when they have a guest on, obviously they want to keep the questions geared toward the guest. So I think this was a great idea, and I think it's material for a lot of shows when maybe schedules don't permit. You can't get a guest on, or you want to take a break from interviewing, because the whole point of Shuttlepod Show is, we know because they were here, their goal isn't just to do interviews. They have a huge array of topics that they want to cover. So I think it's great that they're doing this. And like I said, viewer questions is a great show to throw in the minute you have an hour's worth of viewer questions. Some of the questions are really good. Some of the questions, one of the questions was about the theme again. For some reason, these poor guys can't get off the topic of the theme, because they also ended up talking about it when they were in Chicago. They were the only panel I went to, of course. They both they like it. I mean, well, Connor doesn't really have an opinion on it. Dominic's okay with it. He just wasn't real thrilled when they sped it up for the 3rd season. He thought that was kind of useless. But he really thought that it fits. And the first time I ever heard it, I thought it fits with the pictures and the music and the fact that this was the first foray into space with a Warp 5 engine. I just always thought that the theme fit the show. So yay, I agree with Dominic on that one. But what was really funny was, these were questions that their producer Erica was answering, and Connor still had to do follow-up questions with Dominic. He loves being the interviewer. You could tell, because Dominic would answer something or say something, and Connor wouldn't let it go. He would go for like the deeper dive into whatever the answer was, and I thought that was great. And like I said, in my notes, it says it's a really good thing to have in your back pocket is these viewer question shows. So, if schedules don't permit, if you don't have an interview show or whatever, it's like me and the actor profiles that I did the one on Connor because I needed something. I wanted to do something different. So I started doing these actor profiles, and I will get back into them. I think that the interview show with Dominic that I just watched today probably won't be doing a deep dive into Dominic Keating anytime soon, because I am not competing with the Shuttlepod Show and that amazing interview, which is actually 2 parts. The part 2, I'm hoping it's going to drop next Sunday. Anthony, oh my gosh. I loved the Anthony Montgomery interview because he talked about stuff that I haven't heard about in panels. Things like he's written a memoir that's at the publishers right now, or at his editors. It's in its final stages. That is something I am definitely going to read, and I will review for you guys. I can't wait to read his memoirs. For those of you that don't know, his grandfather was a renowned jazz musician. He himself is a musician. He released a rap album. Another thing I did not know is that he meant for it to be Enterprise themed. It was about the show, and at the time, Paramount told him he couldn't do it, so he got sneaky, and he just changed all the names. He just took out things like Lieutenant Reed and Commander Tucker and, warped whatever he needed to take out so that it was generic. But let's put it this way. You got Mayweather releasing an album where he's rapping about space. It's about Enterprise. So I can't wait for that. The other thing I was really excited to hear about is that Miles Away did get optioned. When I talked to him about this in August in Vegas, the option was about to run out, which means he was going to be able to take back control of the licensing, I guess it is. But the company he was working with finally came. I mean, with COVID, obviously, you have to be willing to kind of make exceptions. But somebody's interested in turning it into an animated series, so I am really excited for him. I am excited for the guys because obviously, where are you going to go look if you need voiceovers? But to your brothers, they absolutely consider themselves brothers. So where else are you going to go? I'm so excited. I hope that comes out soon. It's an amazing inspirational graphic novel. If you haven't heard about it, seen it, check it out. It's called Miles Away by Anthony Montgomery. You can just Google it. You will find it. Absolutely no trouble. Oh, and one of the other things that they answered on the questionnaire, as I'm wearing my Section 31 shirt, of course somebody asked if they had an opportunity to go back and be their characters again, would they either in one of the new shows or some animated something? And they both absolutely said yes. They talked about the Section 31 project, which has been put on hold. Dominic thought he heard it was going to be a movie. However it works, the Section 31 thing would be great. The only thing is if Trip's going to be involved in it, then they would have to admit, they would have to kind of lean towards, okay, we're going to make these novels canon now. Because the only reason that Trip would be involved in Section 31 is because that's how it worked out in The Good That Men Do, which is the novel that I'm reading now, is the one that tells you exactly how it happened. That it lines up with These Are the Voyages. So it's basically how he died but didn't die. And honestly, I haven't watched These Are the Voyages in a while. But I know that that's what it does, and eventually I will watch it at some point, at least once. So that was the second episode, and then this episode they basically interviewed Dominic, and it wasn't even really an interview. I almost said Trip. Connor was perfect. He just sat there and let him talk, and then asked one or two little probing questions. I mean, this thing literally started with "I was born" in Leicester, and then it just went from there. And they called it His Life Before Enterprise, and it covered everything, including the story about how he got his equity card. And this is what's really funny. When I saw him in Chicago, I invited him. Lambda Quadrant had a drag show on Saturday night with the one and only Jackie Cox, who was a top 5 finalist in RuPaul's Drag Race season 12, who is a Star Trek fan who does the most amazing Star Trek drag. And it was the first official drag show at a Star Trek event. Like, it was an official part of Mission Chicago. And so we're inviting everybody. So I of course, invited Dominic and Connor. And I couldn't help say, yeah, because, I heard somebody got their equity card doing drag. And Dominic told me the story. And then later that day, when he was in his panel, the moderator asked him the same question. So I got to hear the story twice in the same day, and then a third time, because if you haven't heard it yet, it's part of the Shuttle Pod. It's a great story. It's an absolutely great story. And I'm jumping ahead, but they couldn't make it to the drag show. They had other plans for the evening. But on Sunday, we were making the rounds with Jackie Cox, and I was at their table when she showed up, and I nudged Jackie and I said, yeah, well, somebody over there got their equity card in drag. And Jackie says, oh, I heard. And Dominic looks over and says, yeah, but honey, it's something like, darling, I never looked as good as you. It was a very sweet little exchange between the two of them. No, there are no pictures. Hey, Warlord, thanks for popping in. Good to see you. According to Dominic, there are no pictures. Trust me, I have looked for Dominic Keating in drag on the internet. I have yet to find it. But then again, I have a friend who is a super internet sleuth, and I might have to put her on the case. It's the last thing. I have not asked her to do that for me, so I may have to. But as you know, I am a huge fan of Shuttlepod Show, so please go watch it. The link to the YouTube is in the description, as well as the link to Magic Lasso, Virtual Trekcon, and The Seventh Rule, because they are my favorite YouTube channels. And if you aren't supporting them already, please support them, because they are such amazing people doing amazing podcasts. And of course, it's all part of the Star Trek community because the Star Trek community is amazing, just like the comic book community that Magic Lasso belongs to. So there are just warm, welcoming communities that I think we should all support. Um, and like I said, this interview with Dominic was completely amazing. So absolutely go watch that. You get a really deep dive into his life before Star Trek. Some of the stories I've heard, some of them I haven't. So they were really great. So let's all talk about the pièce de résistance, and the reason that I missed a week or so is because I was in Chicago. Now, here's the deal. I won't say that I visited Chicago because I was literally in the convention center the entire time. The convention center is attached to 3 hotels via Skybridge. Never had to go outside. The only time I went outside, Callie, one of my teammates from Lambda Quadrant, was kind enough to pick me up at the airport. We parked at a parking garage across the street and had to walk out to get to the Marriott. That's the only time I was out, except when we caught the Uber to go back to the airport on Monday. And the one thing I will tell you is we got a taste of the Windy City because I had to take my ball cap off because I was not losing my NX-01 ball cap. Had to take my ball cap off. That's it. So I did at least get a taste of the Windy City. The convention itself, everybody had to be vaccinated, which was great. Everybody got a wristband to get in. You got a badge that showed you paid, and then you got a wristband that shows you were vaccinated. So that was nice. It was a convention center convention. I don't like them as much as hotel conventions. I consider the Rio a hotel convention. STLV's always been to me a hotel convention because it's always felt way more intimate. It is a convention center per se, but it's attached to the hotel, which has a completely different vibe than like the big, all multi-purpose, cement floor kind of convention centers that ReedPop used in Chicago. I don't know when they booked the space, how far in advance you have to book the space, and other options that might have been available, but the space definitely seemed a little big. I think that had a lot to do with COVID. Who could afford to be there? The booth prices were, to have a booth there was over $1,000 to be a vendor. They had some fan booths that they were offering for free at one point, which was great. If you were, if you applied for that, that would have been great. But they let you know kind of close. So even if you got the booth, it was sort of close notice and might have been hard for a lot of people to accept, just from travel and lodging and the arrangements you would have to have made to get there. So it was kind of sparse. I did get to hang out with Trek Geeks, which is a podcast network, which, again, if you don't know Trek Geeks, they're the ones that organized John Billingsley's big telethon that he had. It was on their network, and it was amazing, and I have now met the Trek Geeks. They are an awesome crew. They have, I think, 6 or 7 podcasts as part of their network, including the incredible Sakba sisters, who I know them from, I know Yvette's based in New York. I almost want to say all of them are, but I know 1 or 2 of them aren't. But I have met the Sci-Fi Sisters on other occasions. They're an incredible podcast as well. I should probably add Trek Geeks to the YouTube channel, so you guys are supposed to be following. Oopsie. Sorry, guys. But they're amazing. We are going to be working with them in the future, and maybe I'll even have 1 or 2 of them on the show, so you guys can meet them. So I spent a lot of times with them. I touched base with Star Trek Wines. So hopefully Lambda Quadrant will be doing something with them in Vegas. Cannot wait. They're coming out with a Romulan ale, and it is not going to be wine. They got licensing to do liquor now. So they're going to do a Romulan ale, and it is not going to be wine like the rest of the Starfleet or Star Trek line is. Because this was a licensed CBS event, they had this incredible Strange New Worlds display. I took no pictures. I don't know why. I just kind of wanted to wander around and not be behind like the phone and taking a lot of pictures. So they had this beautiful costume display, and props display for Star Trek Strange New Worlds. For those of you that have watched Picard, when Q popped Picard back into the altered present, Picard had a war trophy room with skulls, with all of these skulls that of his conquered, which included a Ferengi skull, which is the one that really freaked me out because of the way the bones were with the ears. But Martok, it looked like he killed Martok and Garrick, and not sure which the Ferengi was, but it was in the show. Well, those skulls too were there, so you got to get up close and personal with all of these trophy skulls that were in the second episode of Picard. Of course, Lambda Quadrant had an amazing booth. We had Jackie there 2 days signing autographs and dressed to the nines. What else? It was nice that the panel rooms were pretty close. The main room was right across from the vendor room, and then upstairs in the smaller ballrooms were the ancillary panel rooms. I did not eat. This is the thing. Like I didn't eat any pizza. Wait, I take that back. I didn't eat pizza inside McCormick Place. The Marriott that's attached to McCormick Place where I stayed had like a little food courty kind of thing. Is that where I had the pizza? Yeah, I had a piece of pizza there that was pretty good. But the only thing I had in McCormick Place, and I didn't realize how close the Starbucks was, or I would have walked over to the Starbucks. I got a Dunkin' Donuts because there was a Dunkin' Donuts cart right there. But I really like I said, I don't feel like I can say I went to Chicago because I really didn't experience Chicago. I know that ReedPop has a bunch of other conventions in Chicago. I might just have to bite the bullet and go out for another one, and maybe Lasso and I can coordinate so that we can go to something together. C2E2 is like their big one, which is the big pop culture event that's in Chicago that I definitely would love to check out. And per ReedPop's promise, I guess, is the way you could look at it. Per ReedPop's little whatever it is now a traveling show, and the next official Star Trek convention is going to be May 26th through the 28th in Seattle, Washington next year. So the 26th to the 28th, which is Memorial Day weekend, which really sort of pissed off a lot of people, I think, because that's kind of like a family thing. So so I know a lot of people, but aren't happy that it's over like a bit like the first holiday weekend of the summer. But my bestie Wendy lives right outside Seattle, so for the first time in a long time, I do not have to worry about finding a hotel and how far is it from the convention center. I don't have to worry about Uber because I will be staying with Wendy and commuting to the convention every day. So that's my big plan for Star Trek Seattle, which is just over a year away. The other thing ReedPop did, and we all know this because we talked about it before, they're kind of last minute additions of guests. Those hotels were really expensive. They were almost $200 a night. Any of the three that were attached to McCormick Place. And I said this before, I had wanted to go out like a day or two early, maybe to experience Chicago. And an extra day, which would have meant, going out maybe Wednesday night. So, like a Wednesday night to a Monday night would have cost almost as much as 11 days at the Rio. I do have to emphasize, I am a Caesar Rewards member, but a very low tier, and still, yeah, so I couldn't justify even splitting a room with somebody for that kind of, for that many nights. So, I just think, like I said, overall, it was a good show. Overall, it was a lot of fun. The Lower Decks crew actually cosplayed as their characters and did their panel as their characters, including Jack Quaid with purple hair. They had somebody as a life-size doll, DAL from Prodigy, to sit in on the Prodigy panel. Anna from Lambda Quadrant won third place in the cosplay contest. Jackie Cox was the MC, and Anna went as the salt sucking monster from Mantrap. Oh, man, was in that title from Mantrap in TOS. She went as the salt monster. She got third place. So we were very excited for her for that. What other cool things happened? Oh, Doug Jones said I could call him Dougie. That was cool. We talked a couple of times. I went over and gave him one of the official Lambda Quadrant hand sanitizers, and we chatted a little bit. And then I went back over with Randy, who created the hand sanitizer. So that was pretty cool. Doug Jones said I could call him Dougie. Had a lovely chat with David Ajala from Discovery. He is, if you can have a chance to talk to him, he is so great. And as a complete and total utter Anglophile, he's one of those, please just sit here and read me the entire phone book, because he has that lovely voice. I know Magic Lasso knows him better as Manchester Black from Supergirl, and he actually had an 8x10 of him with Supergirl on his table. I'm like, oh my god, that was you, covering the fact that I had no idea, even though I'd seen him. I'm like, oh right, that was you. I said that was back when the show was good, and he actually completely agreed with me that Supergirl had gone downhill. Got to reacquaint myself with Mary Chieffo and her lovely partner Maddie. They are working on more projects together, more stage projects and things together in LA. So I'm excited for them for that. Had a very quick conversation with Noah Averbach Katz, still trying to work out our schedules to get him on. Unfortunately, the play that I told you at the wedding that his wife, Mary Weissman, is in, that I was really going to try and get tickets for, somebody got COVID and they canceled all but the final performance, which I actually think was yesterday. I'm pretty sure it was the end of April, so I'm pretty sure it was the 24th. I don't know if they're going to try and reschedule. I don't know how the Lincoln. I don't know if the Lincoln Center. I don't know if they shut that play down or all the plays that were in Lincoln Center. So I haven't checked on that. But Broadway did see some COVID. There were some other shows that shut down as well. So that was disappointing. What else happened? Like I said, I got to talk to my Enterprise boys, got hugs from Connor, which are always good. Got to see Chase Masterson for a minute because Chase did not have a line. So I got to talk to Chase. Got a chance to talk to Robin Curtis about her appearance on Night Court and how much we both admired John Larroquette and how she liked the fact that they were in Star Trek The Search for Spock together. And basically how Night Court did not age well. Night Court in general did not age well. Dan Fielding is not a character that you would ever see. Dan Fielding back then is not a character you would ever see ever again. Even though they're rebooting Night Court, and he is attached to the project. Hopefully he's going to be a much different Dan Fielding, a Dan Fielding that might have learned his lesson, hopefully. So Robin and I got a chance to touch base, and which is nice. I haven't seen her since Vegas, so it was good to see her. Introduced her to Jackie Cox, which was a great little thing. Got to talk to James Cromwell for a hot second because I got an autograph from my friend Evan. Unfortunately, I did not get an autograph for myself, but I did show him my little Zefram Cochrane action figure because he had seen it, and I told him I got it at a Superman museum. He thought that was pretty cool. Hopefully he'll show up in more conventions now. Did not get a chance to see the Borg Queen. The new Borg Queen, Annie, was there. What's really funny is at one point I was just chatting and Dominic said something like, oh, we should go say hi to Annie. And he couldn't leave his table, so he looked at me. He's like, could you go see if Annie's over there? I'm like, sure, for you. So I wandered over, and unfortunately she was not there. But it was just funny because he's just like, will you go check? I'm like, yeah, Dominic, sure. The other thing that I did, and I don't know if it's ever going to see the light of day, but I was talking to them when somebody else came over to talk to them, and they wanted to shoot a promo with this guy who's going to be making them buttons, hopefully. I was there. I knew it was JR, and I had met him, and he had talked about making buttons for them for Shuttlepod Show. So they decided that they were going to do a promo with him, and I don't know if it's ever going to see the light of day, but if the promo with JR comes up, with Connor and Dominic standing at their booths in the convention center, I shot it. Just saying. Connor gave me his phone and I shot it. Whether it ever sees the light of day, I don't know. But trust me, I'm going to grab the credit for that one. Because, Gotta grab your credit when you can. Yeah, so all in all, it was a great time. 3 days, I don't think is enough for a full-on Star Trek convention. I mean, 5 days barely seems like enough. Just with because at least in 5 days, you feel like you can cover way more. Considering 50 years and umpteen shows and 13 movies and everything that's going on. STLV this year is actually only 4 days, probably because they had to move it to Bally's. Let's see, 26, 27, 28. It's still going to be 3 days next year. Either, honestly, if this is how I feel, if you're going to schedule a convention that's taking place over a holiday weekend, take advantage of the fact that a lot of people don't have to work on Monday. I would have it 4 days. I would have it 4 days and then let people either leave late Monday or early Tuesday. I just feel like Star Trek needs more than 3 days. I mean, I feel that way. I mean, I always get depressed after every convention I go to. I'm not gonna lie. But I just feel like Star Trek conventions need to be longer. It's maybe because Creation spoiled me with Vegas. Granted, when Creation takes their conventions on the road, the Star Trek conventions on the road, it is always 3 days. It's only 3 days in the smaller cities, but I mean, if you're going to be the flagship official convention of Star Trek, then personal opinion, ReedPop, make it more than 3 days. I don't think you'd be disappointed with anything. I think you would make out really well. Like I said, they were really great to Lambda Quadrant. They were absolutely fantastic. We loved working with them for their inaugural year and having to deal with COVID and everything else. I think they did a really great job. Like I said, the guest announcements just were not something to sit on because I feel like people aren't spur of the moment traveling right now. You know, it takes a lot of thought. Ticket prices are ridiculous because of the gas thing. So announce further out. Don't let us all sit on 6 or 7 guests and then let things start to trickle in. I mean, my decision was made because Lambda Quadrant was going, and it was important for me to be there. And I got a badge. I didn't have to worry about badges. I had a room to split. So for me, it was a no-brainer. But for people that have to pay not only to get there but pay to get in, and the badge prices were pretty steep for the weekend. You know, when you add it all in, like I said, to kick things off in Chicago, I don't know what pricing is like in Seattle. Wendy has experience going to conventions. ReedPop now owns Emerald City Comic Con, which is the big Northeast convention. So I don't know what conventions up there are like. I love Las Vegas. I'm not gonna lie, I love Las Vegas. I know a lot of people hate Las Vegas. I love Las Vegas, but I think Creation has the right idea to hold a longer convention. You want to hold it someplace where there are a ton of options for people to stay that aren't going to bankrupt them. You know, flights are pretty easy to find to get yourself to Vegas from just about anywhere. You know, people from LA can drive, which makes it convenient. Or it's a 45-minute flight, which makes it very convenient to get your talent there if they don't even want to fly, if they want to drive, or if they want to, you know, if you do fly, it's, you know, 2 seconds and you're landing practically. So I think Creation has the right idea, keeping it in Vegas because it's just a very accessible city that's not too terribly difficult on your pocketbook. Whereas ReedPop wants to move it around, which is also great because it makes it accessible to people that can't get to Vegas. You know, I'm hoping that after Seattle, maybe, you know, they did middle of the country. Now they're doing, you know, the West half. Maybe in 2024, it's going to be over here. Philly would be great. New York would be okay. Boston, I'm always looking for an excuse to get back to my old stomping ground. But even if it ends up in Florida, I would go to Florida. I've got friends down there. I would go to Florida too. You know, so maybe they are planning to bop it around. So there's definitely something to be said for that. But like I said, it's nice to kind of know that Vegas is way more accessible just from a financial standpoint. Because if you can't stay at the host hotel, You could stay at the Gold Coast when you were at the Rio, and I know the Gold Coast was a lot cheaper and it was a lot easier. I know people are talking about staying at the Flamingo. The Flamingo is the cheapest, nearest option. And I just saw a lot of people talking about cosplay and walking across from the Rio, or sorry, walking across to Bally's. Um, the difference is the strip. People just keep this in mind. Bally's is technically on the strip. It's on the strip because it's connected to the Paris, pretty much. The main entrance to Bally's is actually on Flamingo, uh, but it's strip accessible if you walk through Bally's, through the Paris, and then you're technically on the strip. Um, but depending on how big your cosplay is, if you stay at the Flamingo, regardless of what time you leave during the day to walk to Bally's, you're dealing with strip traffic. You're dealing with a lot of traffic, a lot of foot traffic, a lot of car traffic, because I think you're gonna have to cross Flamingo, which is different on the other side, which is different down by the Rio. Flamingo is the same street. The Rio is just further down Flamingo in one direction, and Bally's is at basically Flamingo and the Strip. So traffic's a lot different there. So the Flamingo might be the same distance measurement wise that the Gold Coast is, but foot traffic and car traffic wise, it's going to be more difficult. So anybody that's thinking about not staying at Bally's, which I completely respect and understand, just be prepared for that if you're a cosplayer and you're going to be wearing something that's heavy as in hot, heavy as in physically heavy, or just bulky. Be prepared to deal with that little inconvenience of getting from point A to point B. But like I said, all in all, it was a great convention. Can't wait to see what ReedPop does in May. Uh, I know Creation's keeping things a little different. Creation's definitely going to want to keep things as different as possible. Right now, ReedPop is pretty standard, high quality, decent panels, decent guests, and a vendor room. No evening program. I mean, we did our drag show was at 6:15, but they don't have evening programming the same way that Creation has. Creation always has such amazing evening programming so that the convention doesn't end when the vendor rooms closes. And they're famous for that. Enterprise Karaoke hopefully is back. Assuming things stay the same as they have been with COVID, I don't see why they wouldn't do karaoke. So again, anybody that's going to be in Las Vegas, you know where to find me on Thursday night. It will definitely be at whatever the Enterprise boys are doing. Last year, it went from karaoke to bingo. This year, I'm hoping it stays karaoke. But whatever it is, Thursday night, you will find me wherever the Enterprise stuff is. And y'all know that. But anybody that was on the fence, ReedPop put on a good show. Put your pennies together. They haven't really done anything announcement wise outside of let us know the whens and the wheres. But I will always keep you guys posted. I don't know, Robert, if my parting little thing to you guys. Robert, this one's especially for you if you didn't see my quickie little 3-minute thing that I did when I got back from Chicago. But J.G. Hertzler, they announced this. J.G. Hertzler is going to be doing a voice for Star Trek Lower Decks. They're going to be playing some sort of their version of Dungeons and Dragons. It's a Klingon version of a Dungeons and Dragons, and JG is going to be voicing the Dungeon Master type person. This could absolutely be a nod to Disco Does D&D. I would love to see if they make any reference to the fact that the Disco somehow weave it into the canon that people who were on Discovery like to play D&D, because the actors do. But yeah, that one's for you if you didn't miss it. Robert, JG is gonna be hanging out with the crew on Lower Decks. So that is what I am leaving you all with. That was this big special announcement that I heard about. Like I said, I only went to the Enterprise panel, so there was no big announcements from the Enterprise crew. No movies, no animated series coming out, unfortunately, even though they would all definitely be involved. So guys, thank you for bearing with me. Thank you. I have missed you so much. Life happens, and when you do something like this by yourself, you know, you kind of have to do things like cancel at the last minute, and I hated doing that, but I am so glad I am back. So I will catch you all next week. Until then, please don't forget to live long and prosper.
Hey, this is Connor Turner. You've been listening to the NX7062 podcast with Stephanie. Enjoy your evening.